Welcome to ISE 2022 in beautiful Barcelona, Spain. I don't get tired of saying that at any time in any of these interviews. This is Rich Fregosa for AVNation TV, and I'm sitting here with Ariel Marcus, who is the CTO of MSolutions. Ariel, welcome.
Welcome to.
It's great to be back together in person, isn't it?
Definitely. After long 2 years that we had, it's finally seeing people, meeting customers, introducing new product. We had some time during the last 2 years to enlarge the coverage that we have for AV installers and installation. And it's quite interesting to see the amount of traffic that came to our booth. During the last 2 days, this is the third day today, during the last 2 days we had a lot of visitors. I can tell you that even we had sales. We introduced some new products. We introduced the MS Test Pro, which is the market is quite familiar with. It's an HD-based tester, but we added Spec 2 of the HD-based T, we added Spec 3. We are testing HDMI cables now, but we are completely different from the traditional way. What we are testing is the physical layer of the HDMI cables.
Okay.
Today, the traditional way is by a transmitter and receiver of HDMI. You're doing a loop, sending the data, you're seeing its bit exact, and that's it.
You're focusing on the signal itself, but not necessarily the true transport,
Exactly.
which is the actual conveyance device.
Exactly. You know, on the Ethernet side, there was a development over the years. We had 110 bandwidth, then we jumped to 1G and 10G. For the 110, we tested the infrastructure using patterns. We send it, we received it, we see how many errors, we see how many retransmission, and so. With the 1G, we added, by the IEEE, we added 802.3 BT standardization to check the category cable on a DC resistance level. Now, this was with the 1G, so we tested patterns and DC resistance. Moving to 10G, we don't need to check patterns anymore. We need to check the DC resistance and the quality of the cable. But what happened with the HDMI cables? HDMI cables over the last 20 or even more years, they started with the 720, 460, then moved to Full HD, 1080p, and moved to a 4K 420 with 300 megapixel, and now we're going for 4K with 600 megapixel and jumping to 8K.
Right.
But still, the testing is the traditional one. So the traditional one means we are using a chipset of HDMI transmitter, we are using a chipset of HDMI receiver. This one has gain in order to send better quality of HDMI. This one has error correction. We're not doing that. You cannot test HDMI with HDMI. You can test HDMI with a tester that is not involved with HDMI protocol. You can test the infrastructure, you can test the wiring, and this is what we are doing. We are adding, and in Infocom we will show it, we are adding a USB-C tester, which is a module to the MS Test Pro that we have. The USB tester will be able to test USB-C cable and to tell you, is it supporting DisplayPort? Is it supporting the Ethernet? What about USB 2.0, USB 3.0? What about the power management? So we will provide something unique to the market which is not available today, and it will be very interesting to see it.
Well, you bring up an interesting concept because, I mean, when we obviously talk about AV over IP, which is it's basically the highway structure of getting the data, but now we're dealing with the off-ramps with these cables, and that you still have the decoder on the side going to the display. And absolutely, I mean, you just brought something up that I never really thought to consider, but more and more USB-C displays, monitors, input devices are starting to hit the market, and we're seeing it there. And just like you want to be able to test the video quality coming into a display, you need to be able to check the transmission signal. So, what was the decision behind expanding into checking the actual cable itself?
The decision to do a USB testing came from the reason that during the last 2 years, we worked mainly with video conferencing. All the Zoom, all the meetings that were online and things like that, you saw that all the cameras are using USB cables. Now, from time to time, you're seeing drops, you're seeing disconnection of the camera, you're seeing artifacts, you're seeing a lot of things that you're not used to. You're buying a USB-C cable, you connect it, and you don't have USB 3. Why? The USB 3 is riding on top of the wire, the 21 wire of the USB-C. If the wires are not there, it will not work. If the wires are not set properly, it will not meet the bandwidth because you will have artifacts. So this is exactly the reason that came out of the last 2 years that we were deeply at home without going to work all the time, afraid from the COVID, but we used the cameras. We used the different cameras, we used the different type of equipment in order to go online. And USB was one of the main cables that we actually used. So how do we test USB? I didn't receive it anywhere. I know that there are products that test USB, but these are in terms of R&D. In terms of R&D, those are expensive, heavy equipment. You cannot take it with you on site.
And so you've decided to make this a field tool.
Exactly. We're taking the MS Test Pro, which is a modular tester for HD-based and HDMI and DC resistance, and now we're providing additional module.
So the technician can take the kit out, certify the cables, and all the way through from
exactly
working their way through each of the different connection types.
Exactly.
Well, great. And you're showing that on the floor?
Not today. On Infocom, we will show the USB. Today, we're showing the HDMI. We're showing the DC resistance. We know how to provide limits for the HD-based spec 3.0. Up until today, the HD-based is new one. The cables becomes very, very important to understand. The propagation of the signal through a category cable that has high resistance, which, by the way, the values, the thresholds, are not defined clearly by the IEEE. If you have high resistance, you will not pass the signal. You will have attenuation on it. Now, the HD-based 3.0, it is very important for him to know what is the resistance of the cable. We are the only tester today certified by the HD-based Alliance to qualify HD-based 3.0 cables, to understand which one is good and not. And the tester, since it's a good one in terms of analyzing the DC resistance, it covers all the DC resistance for LAN, for HD-based and the new one. In terms of LAN, by the way, not knowing the limits of the category cable in terms of resistance provide you a lot of problems. We can take an example. Today, you can order a bandwidth of 100 meg to your house, and then you are connected with a category cable. From time to time, and it's not from time to time, if you are using a low-cost cable, you will see that you are reaching only 60% of the 100. 60 meg, 70 meg, 80 meg in the good chance. These are not dropped because the Ethernet is not good enough. They are dropped because of the drops over the cables. You have a high resistance, think about it. You have a transmitter, you have a receiver. You transmit with one amplitude, with a certain level of power that you invest. Some of the power is dropped over the cable. You are receiving a low amplitude on the receiver side. Receiving that means that either the receiver will be able to analyze the data and recover it, and that's fine. But if it's not, he will say, listen, I didn't receive the packet, and that's Ethernet. Simple Ethernet that we are all familiar with. I didn't receive the packet, or I received it with errors. If in both cases, he will tell the transmitter, please send it once again. And then you're going into a loop of retransmission until he will recognize the data. So DC resistance is very important. HD-based it's critical for it. And knowing the thresholds, the real values that if you cross them, you will fail the installation, are also very important.
Unless they're using your tester. Right. Well, great. Obviously, you would love to get people down to the showroom floor, but if they can't make it to Barcelona, which is very unfortunate right now, given how beautiful it is this week, how can they find you?
You can find us on the website. Our webpage is www.m4sol.com. M, the number 4, SOL.com. You will see all the products, cameras, all that are optimized for our products. You will see the tester with all the different modules that can be purchased. And you will see, by the way, something new that already we provided as a cloud interface. Think about integrators running the whole, located in different states in the US, and they need support from their main office on a call center. User from the main office can log into the tester, can see in a real time what is going on, how to fix it, how can support them. This is something that is unique to our tester, and it provides a lot of benefit to the users. You don't need to be expert on the field. You get support from home base.
That's actually pretty amazing support. Well, obviously, if you can make it down to the booth, there's some great information, but it sounds like the webpage itself and your cloud support from MSolutions is absolutely stunning. However, if you want to find out more about ISE 2022 and our other exhibitors who are here, you can take a look on the AVNation website, our social media feeds. But at this point, this is the end of my time with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
This is Rich Fregosa coming at you from Barcelona, Spain, ISE 2022 for AVNation.tv.